American poetry is gradually becoming as popular as British poetry to most students of English literature. We've already done a poem, in fact 2 poems by Frost. So now we are looking at the period of the American Civil War. The poets writing in America began as early as the 17th century when you had the colonists, but they used British ideals, and it was only much later that gradually American poetry developed an idiom of its own. American poetry today has to be looked at differently from British poetry. Walt Whitman, 1819 to 1892. He's been hailed as the national poet, as the poet of democracy. He was a poet, an essayist, a journalist, and also the father of free verse. A humanist to the core, one of his most famous collection of poems is Leaves of Grass, published in 1855, but we are told that he kept revising it almost to the end of his life. Some of you may recall a beautiful poem in praise of Abraham Lincoln, "O Captain, my Captain." There is also the song of myself, "When lilacs last in the dooryard bloomed," etc., etc. Most of his poems do talk about the relationship between the poet and society, which as a humanist was very important to him. The Voice of the Rain by Walt Whitman reminds me of the Song of Rain by Khalil Gibran. Let me begin by reading the poem. "And who art thou?" said to the soft falling shower, which, strange to tell, gave me an answer as here translated. So the first 2 lines of the poem is what the poet is asking, and then now you have the reply of the rain. It seems as if the importance of the environment, of ecology, of water, etc. comes across beautifully in this poem. So what does the rain say? "I am the poem of earth," said the voice of the rain. "Eternal, I rise, implacable, out of the land and the bottomless sea, upward to heaven, whence vaguely formed, altogether changed and yet the same. I descend to lave the droughts, stones, dust layers of the globe." Do you remember in school we talked about the water cycle? You know how the water, due to evaporation, rises from the seas, the rivers, becomes the cloud, and then once again descends to the earth. It's almost as if the poet is describing that, but of course far more beautifully than our science textbooks do for us. "I am the poem of the earth." How beautiful. The poet is here comparing rain to poetry. As important as poetry is to us human beings, so is rain to the earth. What does it do? The voice of the rain is answering the question, "Who are you?" And then he says, "I'm eternal," because I might change my form, but I'm still the same. And that's why I mentioned the water cycle to you. What do? I rise out of the land and the bottomless sea. Exaggeration, remember, hyperbole, so important, the bottomless sea. Upward to heaven, whence vaguely formed. The cloud has no shape. The cloud has shifting shapes, changing shapes. He says, altogether changed and yet the same, because I'm water, whatever form I may take. I descend. Where do I descend? Down to the dust layers of the globe. We have to remember what the earth looks like in summer, covered with dust, and then the rains come. And forever, day and night, I give back life to my own origin and make pure and beautify it. I am responsible for making this dry, dust-laden earth beautiful. Because once water comes, once the rains come, you know how everything seems to be springing back to life. And then he says, for song, if I come back to my birthplace after fulfillment, wandering, wrecked or unwrecked. The last two lines again are the conclusion of the poet. Remember, the poem began with the poet asking, who are you? And then you have rain answering. And then the last two lines is once again the words of the poet. Because duty with love returns. It's my duty to bring water, to bring rain, to bring love, to bring life, to bring beauty to this earth, he says. Who says this? Rain answers the question of the poet. And the poet concludes saying, the rain is the music, it is the poetry of the earth. A beautiful description of the rain that we see every day, but really don't realize what it is giving to us human beings. The poem is filled with imagery, creating scenes in our mind, and that's what imagery is all about. You can see the clouds, you can see the sea, you can see the rain, you can see the beauty of the earth after the rain. So the rain is actually nurturing, quenching, purifying, etc. And that's what the imagery creates for us. There's also personification, because the rain speaks. The rain is not supposed to speak, but it's personification. There's metaphor, when he calls himself the poem of the earth. There's hyperbole, I've already mentioned it, in the bottomless sea. There is antithesis, when two opposite words like day and night, you can see that. All this adds to the total effect of the poem. I've not explained each one of them by giving you a definition, because I have begun to believe that this is about 15-20 sessions that we've had together. I'm sure most of these figures of speech are what you are now very familiar with. I can't help but quote one of my favorite poems on the rain. Varsha aayi, bhai, bahar aayi, aayi re aayi, varsha aayi. What rain does to all of us, it brings that joy to us. There are many poems on rain in the English language. There's Longfellow's poem, A Rainy Day. There's Dickinson's poem, Summer Shower. There's Hardy's poem, During Wind and Rain, and many more. Enjoy the rain. Look forward to the rain if it's summer. And of course, read more and more poems on rain, rainy day, the shower, etc., etc.